Before you watch this video, hopefully you watch the introduction video explaining to you what the remaining of the semester is going to be like, what we're covering this week, and discussing how you will meet with me to do the final project. I decided due to scheduling, due to the size of the class, and because this is majorly an online course, I am not going to require you to come on campus on Friday, December 6th. Instead, I'm going to offer 2 times as a group Zoom meeting you can attend, or you can schedule your own individual meeting to meet with me to review the assignment. So what we're going to talk about in today's lecture is how do I evaluate a pharmacy business? And this is what your last assignment is going to be. Once again, this will not be due over Thanksgiving break. This will be due for when we meet as a group or one-to-one individually. And then also to give you a little bit of insight of what to expect when you are trying to get funding for a pharmacy business. The key issues when we're trying to evaluate a pharmacy business is where the location means. And you'll hear the word location, location, location. Because having an ideal location, especially if you're a brick and mortar store where people are walking in, you need that location to be, accessible in a good location where there's high traffic volume to be able to be there. Good to great traditional relocations are always good pharmacy locations. Obviously, having ample parking, being able to get good access from both sides of, say, a busy road, are there. The other thing is this semester we reflected on business ideas, exploring what are things that are necessary. And for those who are going to continue on in the concentration next semester, we're going to focus on your business plan. And so you'll be able to determine, what you hope your business looks like. But anytime we are deciding that we would want to become an entrepreneur and start our own business, just like we did in the beginning introductions of the semester, you have to think about when's the right time personally for you. When do you think that you are set to do it? What is your family situation in choosing to either start a new pharmacy from scratch or buy a current pharmacy? The other thing too is you may have to address or deal with relocating. Maybe where you are acquiring a current pharmacy is not the best location, and there might be advantages of moving it slightly into a different location. Other important factors in evaluating a pharmacy or starting your own pharmacy business is obviously evaluate the competition. Doesn't necessarily mean that if there's competition, well, I just can't do it. What you want to look at is the competition, how long they've been there, what do they offer, what can I offer that can be different for that. The other thing too is, like I said, what is the ability to people to get access to your business? In a traditional community pharmacy, we want the right location, as I said in the prior slide, with ample parking, with the ability to, get in and out, free parking, things like that. The other thing is accessing to your business is also, if you have a consulting business, how do people find out about you? How do they contact you? What does your website presence look like? What does your social media presence look like? The other thing is when we talk about, consulting and pricing of your products and selling of your business niche ideas, you need to look at who is my market and what does that market size look like. Next semester, I will be sharing with you ways to do that. We did talk about a little bit about marketing this semester, but we want to be able to identify that, looking at the demographics, because those are the things are going to allow us to take the financials and do pro forma. So for example, say that I'm starting a diabetes consulting business. I would want to look and evaluate within the radius that I hope to market. What is the potential of how many diabetics are in the area? And if I say, for simplicity, there's 1,000 diabetics. Maybe my goal is to get at least 100 of them in the first year. And in 100 of them in the first year, what would I charge per session and how many sessions per year? And so therefore I can identify and calculate and forecast my sales. And by forecasting my sales, then I can be able to look at what will my operating costs, and I can kind of create my own financial, forecasting of what my P&L would look like. The other thing I may want to look at is who are my providers that I'm going to partner with. What are the number of local prescribers in the area, the specialists in the area? Once again, let's use the diabetes one as an example. If I was trying to be more focused in diabetes, what's the percentage of endocrinologists and primary care physicians where most of my referrals would come from? And special market segments, are, you want to evaluate, are they possibly available to you? As I said, doing this market research, there's numerous things. Obviously, physical yellow pages is a thing of the past, but there are online types of yellow pages, white pages that you can use. Looking at government census sites, and another one that I like, it's called epodunk.com. And you can get collection of everything from demographics of an area to disease states of an area to number of prescribers of the area to the health status in the area. So you want to do your research to be able to do your marketing. And marketing analysis is so important because that's where you're going to get your numbers to help forecast your financials. The other thing is if I'm acquiring a business, say I want to purchase somebody's current community pharmacy, and this is what we're going to use as our last exercise. And this exercise is to be able to look at, to be able to evaluate a scenario of what this business looks like, what are the potentials you could do to grow this business, and what do you think the business is worth? Because what is the value of a business and how that can be documented to satisfy all parties is necessary for a sale to occur. And this could be you too. So maybe someday you're going to start a business, you're going to grow that business, and then someday you may look at what is my end plan, my exit plan when I want to end this business. What is the value of it, and who would want to acquire that? We see that every day in businesses that are not pharmacy related, that are startup companies that then get acquired by other companies. So, for example, a recent acquisition made by Google was for Fitbit. So how did Fitbit and Google come to terms of what was the value of Fitbit? I gave you an example earlier this semester of David Pope, who started Strand, and one of the things that he just did recently in this past year, he sold to a larger company. And so there had to be come to a terms of what was the value of theirs and what was the purchase. We recently, in our own company that I'm working with, we actually had to, we are in the process of closing a pharmacy and selling it. And we had to we had to meet with the current person who wanted to acquire the pharmacy and come up to a terms of what it is worth. So when we are determining the value of a business in terms of selling it, we have to look at what the true market value and what the market price is. A good way to explain this is the housing industry. All right, there is a set value of what your house and your property may be worth, but depending upon how many houses are available in the area you live in, depending upon the school district, depending upon the access you may have to other businesses or to surrounding cities, the value, the market price may be higher than what the true evaluation of the home is. So the market value is the value that is ascertained by using one or more formulas that can be applied by comparing against other transactions of similar nature. And the market price is what is somebody willing to pay for it regardless of the stated documented value. So once again, you obviously want to get the true value of it, but sometimes depending upon the situation, you may get more than what the value of it is depending upon the current economics and nature that it's happening in real time. So the age-old question, how do we evaluate a business? Well, for the exercise that we're going to be doing in the next couple weeks, we're going to be evaluating a traditional community pharmacy. And in any types of businesses you're evaluating, there's numerous types of formulas. A formula that could acquire any type of business is you may look at multiples of cash flow, the income or the profitability measures, plus a lot of times you're selling the assets, the fixed assets, and the inventory. Sometimes another formula gets used is you take a percentage of annual sales plus inventory, and this formula is really only good if you have comparable stores. Will post on Blackboard an article for you to look at on the numerous different formulas to evaluate a pharmacy. And in your live lecture that you're going to present to me, you'll have to, prior to us meeting, look at this scenario and evaluate in numerous ways of what you think the value of this business is. The other thing is you want to look, another formula is a fixed dollar figure times the number of prescriptions filled annually plus the inventory. The chains use this when they're buying a community pharmacy, and the value of the prescriptions can a lot of times are determined based upon the real percentage chance that that chain will retain those customers. So obviously, the closer your location is to the chain you're selling, the greater the value of the prescriptions. Sometimes another formula is the multiple of the owner's total compensation. So you look at the true sales of the business, what the net profit the business has been giving, what the pharmacist owner has been taking out, and kind of come to a mixed formula there. There are lots of other variety of formulas accountants, evaluators, consultants, and brokers use, and I did post some articles on there for you to take a look at that. So there's no simple formula or rule of thumb. The financial statements of small privately held companies often do not represent the entire picture accurately, both positive and negative. Because when you own a small business, sometimes there's little different advantages you may have. There may be, say that the business has, payments on a business vehicle. And maybe the person acquiring it doesn't need the business vehicle. Maybe they're not going to do deliveries. There may be numerous employees that are employed by the current owner, and these are family friends that that they are helping them out, but maybe when you truly evaluate the volume of the business, you may not need as many employees. The other thing too is, you will look at the sales, the weekly, the monthly, the annually, but they don't always take into account, what is the true nature of the profitability. Because one of the reasons why we did the financial ratio exercises, and when you watch the video going over those answers, is that you may be able to forecast where this person may not have been doing good business decisions. Maybe they have a bad deal with their current wholesaler of how they're purchasing drugs. Maybe they're too heavy in, their inventory. Maybe they're too heavy in their employees. And so you may find a diamond in the rough where this business does not look profitable, but if you put some hard sweat and tears into it and change things around, you might be able to do this. Another thing too is sometimes people calculate multiples or percentages of the net worth, and they're difficult to apply though in most cases. And there's variable types of pharmacy operations, and many are complex. And I don't mean to scare you off saying, "Oh, I could never acquire a pharmacy, sounds too difficult." It really isn't. You can come up with what the true value of it is. And what you're really hoping to do if you're buying a current pharmacy, you're also buying its history. It's already got its own patient base. It's already got, volume and revenue. Whereas if I was starting up a pharmacy from scratch, it takes a lot more marketing. There's a lot, even though it's maybe a lot cheaper to initially start up, you're going to have greater lines of credit to be able to worry through the early days of less profitability. Now, if you're a consulting company may be a little bit easier to weather that startup, but most traditional pharmacies from a scratch standpoint, take anywhere from 18 to 24 months before they reach profitability. So, what do I have to do if I want to obtain the value of a pharmacy? Well, what I recommend is some of the following. You want to be able to review the current and historic financials at least 3 years if available, and look at trends in sales and margins. That's what we did when we did the healthy pharmacy exercise. We looked over 3 years and looking at their trends. You want to be able to look at their pharmacy department statistics, determine the mix of business, the products, the payers, and what are potential things that they may not be offering, like immunization, MTM. You want to look at purchase records, bank deposits to help determine gross margins and look at uncover inconsistencies. You want to review the expenses to determine the actual operating costs and those that would be applied to you, the new owners. And I gave you some of the examples. Maybe there's several employees on the payroll that don't need to be there when you purchase the company. Maybe there's certain assets that don't need to be there when you determine that. And you need to factor out non-recurring expenses and costly ownership benefits. Maybe this current pharmacy business pays for season tickets to the Pirates, the Penguins, and the Steelers, and maybe that's something you're not interested in, or you believe that your company, if you acquire that, that is not something of an expense you want to do. So what do the buyers need? Critical factors to making a deal work. One, you want to make sure that this business gives you the ability to draw a salary, commensurate with your work efforts, or at least potentially down the road you will make more than if you were just working as a staff pharmacist somewhere else. You also want to have the ability to return on any cash investment that makes equivalent to significantly better than the current market returns. So for example, am I going to make more money owning my own business versus if I take that same amount of money, put it in the market, and what would my return on investment? You also want to have the ability to service any debt incurred in the course of the transaction. So will the business itself help pay for the debt in the future? Why are these critical? Well, the seller can demonstrate to the buyer why his or her business is worth what she or he says it is and how it can be paid off. This is particularly critical because sometimes the seller may be willing to be the bank for you and allow you to purchase the company over time. You, the buyer, want to feel comfortable that when you do assume ownership, you'll be able to earn a living, pay the debt, and build equity in the company in case you need to get further financial assistance down the road. So if the economics work, what else is important when evaluating a pharmacy? Obviously, the first one is the lease. The longer, the better, and as long as the rent fair and affordable. So is the current person who has the business and is leasing from a landlord, is that landlord willing to accept a new owner of that business? Are there option periods that are rather than one fixed term, so that if you decide that maybe you would like to relocate, you're not locked into a long-term lease, or there's options to get out of that lease? What are the conditions of the current business, furniture, fixtures, computer equipment? Is there any remodeling that you think that's going to be needed to be done? And if there is, and it's a fairly old business, you may be able to negotiate, a lower value of the business because you're going to either have to go lend that money or save up for that money down the road. What's the competition in the area? Can this business still survive in the current competitive nature? What are the demographics of the area? Just like we talked about in the early slides, what are the things that I need to do my homework to find out, can I have a thriving business? So, you've done your homework on these parts, and you've identified the pharmacy you'd like to purchase. So what happens next? Next, the negotiation process begins. Often when we do a negotiating process, this is very similar if you're acquiring your first house, all right? It sometimes may be a first-time experience. It might be a one-time experience. It can be troubling and difficult because you want that business, but at the same time, you don't want to overpay, and you also want to be cautious that you're getting what it says it truly is. And it does require skills and knowledge you may not currently have. Just by going through this course and going through the exercise of a business plan next semester, hopefully you will build on that knowledge, but you still want to find people that are very knowledgeable out there. There are several companies out there that will assist new pharmacy owner buyers. The National Community Pharmacy Association has resources to help you, and also talking to wholesalers or other pharmacy owners of who's a good CPA that understands the pharmacy business and what banks are good banks that understand the pharmacy business. Live Oak Bank, which is one of the articles I offered to you, is a bank located mainly in Virginia that truly understands the pharmacy business and works with many pharmacies in doing that, acquiring it. Um, it also, this negotiation process can lead to a less than positive outcome sometimes. And you'll have to be able to be saying, if it's not a good deal, I'm going to walk away. Who can assist you with this process? As I said, you want to find a good attorney, a good accountant, find a bank that's willing to work with you and understands the pharmacy business. Not every accountant, not every attorney, and not every bank truly understands the nature of our business, especially the way the third-party insurances are, the way we handle inventory. Other people that might be able to assist you is people that are maybe lending you money, people who once bought or sold businesses, friends, all right? And there are, like I said, qualified middlemen, brokers, and advisors that do help people acquire pharmacy businesses every day. The basics of effective negotiation is be open and communicate at all times. Do your homework and back up all your statements. Try to keep your emotions out of the dialogue. And I know this term is not always a term people like, but it is business, and that's truly what it is. Keep the win-win concept in mind. How can you, the buyer, and the seller come to good terms? And if things aren't going the way you had hoped, be able to walk away gracefully. How long can this process take? Always longer than you think. Can anywhere take some 6 to 9 months. As I said, knowledge is power. You just by taking this course, and especially next course, will give you some of that knowledge. But making sure that you have available, as I said, a good accountant, attorney, a banker, be able to eventually bid out and talk to insurance agents, your professional trade organizations. The National Community Pharmacy Association has numerous great resources. The Small Business Administration, wholesalers, and perhaps, I always am open to help anybody looking to acquire their new business. And if I can't give you the answers, I'll turn you to somebody who can. Banking, what to expect. So let's talk about the banking aspect. Obviously, the best way to acquire a business is if I have the cash just to straight out purchase it. But most of us do not have that ability to do that. But remember some rules about banking. Banks are built on not taking high risk. And they always ask the question to themselves, why shouldn't we? And what can go wrong mindset. Banks do not typically attract entrepreneurs. And what I mean about entrepreneurs, those with new business type of ideas, those ideas that may never have been done before. Obviously, traditional community pharmacy has done before, and maybe you are going to take the community pharmacy and use it to be able to develop your own personal niches. But if you are going to use a bank, you need to have good, sound business plan to be able to present to the bank. You need to be able to do financial forecasting to be able to do for the bank. And the process would be the following. You'll make an initial point of contact with the bank. You're going to do a due diligence list, provide them with a business plan, and that is the purpose of next semester, is for you to understand those components of what is needed to be able to present to get financing for a bank. You'll come up with what your preliminary term sheet is, which that basically says this is what I'd like to borrow and this is what I'd like to pay at what rate over a period of time. There is an underwriting process of writing out all the who, what's, and where's and what will happen if you would fault on your loan. There is the loan committee approval, the final term sheet. They may require their own appraisal of the business you want to acquire and the closing documents. Like I said before, this is not any different than acquiring a house or even refinancing a house. So, what you need to do is create business plans of the worst, mid, and best case scenarios. They will ask for your tax returns, both personal and the business that you are looking to acquire, your personal financial statements. So the best advice I can give to you as you are beginning in the next couple of years to become a professional is to keep your credit good and to also spend wisely in if you want to own your own business someday. They'll ask you in your business plan of financial projections, preferably at least 3 years historically of the current business you want to acquire, and what does your 3 to 5 year projections of this business look like. Key assumptions, moderate unless they can be supported via strong logic. So if you're looking to grow additional niche businesses like we've been talking about this semester, you're going to have to put that into your business plan and your forecasting and your rationale. They'll also want to see what the lease will look like. Also the resume of the key personnel that are going to be running the business, and also how you are planning to structure the business, whether this is an S corporation, an LLC, and what do those bylaws look like in your business you're going to have. The preliminary term sheet is not the final answer to yes. It just lays out the terms, the interest rate, not rate, sorry about that. What would the payback schedule, the amortization schedule look back? How many years is that rate locked? And they also would like to look at salaries, assets, and purchases. And it's not uncommon too, is whoever you borrow from, you'll be providing them anywhere from an every 6 months to yearly report of how the business is doing. All right. The other thing the bank will probably look at is they'll want collateral, and how the bank views collateral is crucial. The one thing that a pharmacy business has, that's why you have to find the right bank to be able to talk to, is you already have some collateral once you acquire that business. You can always sell the inventory. You can always sell the prescription files to a chain. And so those are assets already in the business that have worth, that if say that the business fails and you can't continue on, you would be able to retrieve that money to help pay off your loan. But obviously too, they may require a down payment, and the biggest thing is the bank's exposure of giving you money. They want to make sure there is assurance that if you default, they're going to get. So, for example, in a house, in a car, there's an asset. If you default, what are they going to get? They're going to take your house. They're going to take the car. So those are assets. So that's kind of a sure win type of loan that the bank is doing. In terms of your business, they're going to want to see the less fixed type of assets you have, such as your inventory and prescription files, the less likely. And that's why starting up, from scratch versus acquiring business, sometimes that startup acquirement funding may be more difficult than acquiring an already current business. They're going to look at those financial ratios we talked about. They're going to look at your cash flow compared to debt to service. They prefer the cash flow generated by the business to be at least 1.25 times the principal and the interest payments. The higher the better. The higher the number, the more of a cushion the business has when there are downtimes of the business. And if buying from an existing business, they want to have the calculation of what are those add backs look like. But like I said, banks are truly in the business of lending money, although it may not appear otherwise, as I stated earlier. But they do not want to take high risk. A loan package must appease a number of people, including the regulators, and banks do work together. And education of our industry to banks is necessary, and it can be done. So this ends this part of the talk. Like I said, I hope you got something out of this, thinking about what are the key components needed. Please read the articles on terms of evaluating a pharmacy business. One way, I will end the talk this way, is one way that a lot of times people who may be coming out of school and think that they don't have enough funding to acquire business, one option is what's called a junior partnership. And there is an article for you to read over this. And the way a junior partnership works like this: you may look at uh, a business that you would like to acquire, and maybe you go and talk to that pharmacy owner, and that's somebody who's also looking to potentially sell their business anywhere in the next 3 to 5 or 6 years. And so what you do is you sit down and you come to the terms of the value of the business, and you come up with an agreement that you are going to acquire this business, at least half of it, over 5 to 6 years. And so what would happen is you would actually come work for that pharmacy owner, but you would maybe come work for them a little bit less salary than you would be if you're working for a traditional chain. But what do you do with that little bit less salary, the difference that you don't get paid? Well, what you do is you set up a bonus plan. And so if you stay with the business and the business does well that first year, then you take that bonus money you get and you don't take it to go home and spend it. You use that money and you acquire a percentage of the current business. Next year, year two comes. You now own a percentage of the business, so whatever the net profit and your percentage of the business, you get that plus your bonus, and once again, you take that and you reinvest into that business. The ultimate goal is by the fifth, no more than the sixth year, that you have acquired 50% of the business from the current owner. What can you do now? Now you own 50%. Two things. One, the seller could be willing to hold the note, and you pay them back over the next couple of years depending upon your agreement. Or now, because you own 50% of the business, you now have equity in the business. And now you may be able to go to a bank and get financing to be able to get the remaining funding to acquire the rest of the business. This is a great way for a young professional wanting to own their own pharmacy business and to do it, a lot sooner than later. I've had at least two students over the last 8 years acquire pharmacy businesses like this, and I soon have a third former student who's about to enter into the same process of a junior partnership. Okay, please watch the video about the answers to financial exercise, and I will go over also a short video of going over the exercise too. Thanks.